from the first.
We're back, and Neal's with me. Do you want to go back? You want to go back to the testimonies? How do you want to handle this? We've both seen.
Yeah, I would be willing to start from the mayor's testimony of Beaverton on. I think this is probably the most significant and important board meeting in years.
Okay.
On many levels. Not only is the testimony of the people important, but well presented, and the look at the response from the board of directors is worth every minute looking at this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've already looked at the testimonies, and I've posted the testimonies on the blog that are just the testimonies without any commentary. If anybody wants to see those, you can look at those. But we're going to go over them again here with Neal Berlin's insightful, comedic, great perspective. So let's get moving.
And by the way, as far as comedic, it depends on which end of the joke you're getting.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Continued efforts in the future as we move forward. So I'd like to acknowledge and invite up the mayor of the city of Beaverton, Mr. Denny Doyle, who I also want to acknowledge that he allowed us to use this nice facility here for our meeting today. There we go. Sir Mayor Doyle, please come on up. We're pleased to see you. Thank you.
This is really weird sitting here. So I just want to welcome you all to the sleepy town of Beaverton, and thank you for coming out and visiting part of the west side. You asked me to speak a little bit about what's actually happening in Beaverton. Obviously, what's cooking, but we're in the process of adding 10 more restaurants all within walking.
Yeah. What?
That if you have a stopwatch, that he will definitely go beyond 3 minutes.
Yeah, they always let the officials, the people with status, go beyond without giving them any shit. And I noticed that happened with Rick Van Beveren. It was like, no problem, Rick. You can go on longer because,
Yeah, there's another one later that everyone else gets the back of the hand with the...
The arrogance of the Trimet board is really astounding, especially Warner, who is really a tyrant as far as I'm concerned. But you know how I feel about this anyway. I think if you're going to be on the Trimet board, you should be able to dedicate the whole day to this and not cut people off. Have at least the decency to listen to what the citizens have to say. But this is just like every other form of government. The citizens don't get a say. They go through all of this shit pretending they have a say, but the reality is you don't have a say. It's like our democracy. They pretend there's an actual democracy. Well, you get to vote for the candidates they give you. You don't get to vote for who's up there running for elections. And it's the same thing here.
I mean, basically, you can roll on this, but his testimony is not only self-serving to himself and the city, but to Trimet. And they're at the round in the new city hall. I'm sure most of the public and most of the people in Beaverton who paid for it didn't realize that the city came and bailed out the developers and picked up this city hall, and I don't know who approves the architectural plans, but that stop, Beaverton Central, has got to have the award of the most disjointed, ugly architecture in the world of 4 or 5 buildings put together. And especially the city hall, when you go by, at least on the train, you're looking at the boiler room.
God.
They painted up all the pipes, but in my gut feeling, that's probably where all the deals are made, down there.
Yeah.
And they can at least, let's say, we might have been in the boiler room, but you could look in as you go by.
Walking distance of the Trimet stops, and that'll bring us to about 68. Wow. All over the world, you name the cuisine, the country, you can almost find at least one or more. It's pretty exciting, and I guess there's a famous brew pub coming too.
Yeah.
So we've really focused on that as our economic development tool, and also making sure that people don't have to drive too far to have a night out. You might have noticed behind us is a little market with about 27 food choices. And
oh, by the way, I didn't put up any of these government official testimonies because they're not of any value to the citizens, as you just. They're not.
Here we are talking about transportation, and this guy is becoming a food critic.
Yeah, right. He's talking about money and economic development, and people are trying to use their transit system, but that's not what it's all about anymore. You know, the neoliberal takeover of public transportation. Well, that's ruined public transportation, and that's why it's in such a sorry state now. And of course, they want the taxpayers to pony up to fix it. You know, the old Hegelian concept: create a problem, make the public face the solution. I mean, it's just, you know, it's government. It's government at its finest. Not serving the people.
There is no one taking Trimet Max to go to these 68 restaurants.
Yeah, no, right. right. That's not. Those people are not taking Max to do that. You're absolutely right.
I mean, that's why the parking lots at the gym and all these out front restaurants are packed.
Yeah, right.
And it's all paved. It's just gorgeous.
Oh, look at
owners in the city are getting compliments from everyone.
Oh, my God.
So maybe after this week, you can walk over and check that out.
Yeah, we'll walk over.
It's pretty amazing. Last Saturday, we did our International Night Market. We had about 9,000 people here in the two parking lots, and right over here, stages, all kinds of entertainment, all kinds of food, and the market, you know, the food cart pod was just doing great business. So it's been pretty exciting to watch that happen. They were even busy in November when they opened up. Now, think about that. Food cart opening in November in Beaverton. That's pretty good. So, you know, also we've got some housing units coming up right here, but that's our sixth major development in the last 5 years in terms of housing options. Part of that is going to be affordable housing subsidized by the city. And so we've got 4 hotels in the market, or one's almost done, one's about ready to start here, a couple out. So we're actually trying to provide places and alternatives for people when they travel to be here. And we also have this little thing called the Urban Growth Boundary Expansion down in South Cooper Mountain. Ourselves and Tiger are going to add about 12.
See how it's all about his property. It's all about Trimet's actual mission, which is property development. This is what Trimet's really about, and he's talking about it. Of course, transit riders could care less about this, but, you know, they don't count.
1,000 new residents to the city, and we also are asking for an additional land just west of South Cooper Mountain, as is Hillsborough and a couple of, you know, Wilsonville. And these urban growth boundary expansions, we've been very clearly told by Metro, you have to have mass transit.
Yeah.
They weren't even shy about that. So we have so that we can have some affordable housing mixed into the different choices there. So
yeah,
Metro is unbiased. Metro is supposed to be overseeing Trimet.
Right. They've just let.
And when's the last time you've seen anyone on the Metro Council say, "What are you guys doing over there?"
Well, actually, once a year they hold a meeting of they talk about the budget once a year. There's a bunch of Metro people that Trimet will go and present their budget to them, and you know it's all prefabricated, of course, it's all scripted, but they do once a year have this meeting with the Trimet officials where they talk about the budget.
Line down Schultz Ferris, line 56.
Were you going to say something?
I'm just going to say, yeah, and that budget is pretty well set in stone.
Yeah. Right.
Been asking for consideration to take that throughout there, because you can right by Sherwood, right by Tiger. We really need to look at that. This is something this region needs, and I'd like to deliver on the affordable housing options that Metro and the whole region needs to see.
Yeah, this is another little scam that I've just figured out. So government planners and engineers and city councils and boards of directors have created this affordable housing crisis. So it's all been created by the professional class, but now they're using it as a way to get more money from the citizens. This is what they're using now as a way to convince people to open up their wallets. The affordable housing crisis, which was created by these exact people, and now they're using it as kind of a leverage to try to make themselves look better.
And if you really want to see what we've been talking about, the developers' interests coinciding with Trimet and Metro, take a ride along the yellow line.
Wow.
And just count the number of new, quote, affordable housing units going up. I'm not sure that I could afford to live in any of them.
Right. That's all nebulous words, fancy words that don't mean anything. And, all these plans are for way out in the future. And, of course, nobody remembers what was said in the year 2018 when 2024 rolls around and they've completed whatever. I mean, it's all standard government playbook, And
the real key, if you really want to look behind it, of where he's talked about all these expansions of what needs to be done by the Metro and the urban growth boundary, you and I are a little late to think that we'll go out there and buy some land and invest in hoping things.
Yeah.
This stuff has been stacked up by these guys years ago.
Exactly. That's what's called. That's where the words light rail mafia come in. This was all planned out way back when Neal Goldschmidt was in power, and this is just a continuation of all of that to this day. And it's been a very effective money-making idea. I mean, this was their idea to make money. I mean, this is why they start. None of this is to help people. They have to understand. Citizens need to wake up someday that this is never about you. This is about the elites finding ways to make money off of you. And Goldschmidt came up with all of this, and it's a brilliant way to get money, and that's what they've been doing.
To have happen. You've got the bond measure, that's a different subject, but if you could really encourage staff to look at this, and so including the last mile trips, we're all over that. We will help you. And that's my soapbox for requests. But I do appreciate everything that you do for the region. Glad you mentioned Nike and the major employers here. We've got some shuttles running, and we need to do more of it, even if they're autonomous. And we're in it. That's a bad slate. We're in it to win it. But anyhow, we're here to help everybody who lives here. So I want to thank you for your service. And Bruce, you're sitting in a great chair.
Oh my God! See, I can't watch. I can't watch these people. I can't watch them doing this. These elites, glad-handing these elites is painful for me to watch.
Okay. Are you following my advice? You got your little pad and paper out there?
Okay.
Okay. One hash mark for the first thank you.
Okay. Did you get it? Okay.
So, with that, I'll say
yeah. Look at
one. Good morning.
Thank you, Mayor. Any comments before any comments or questions for the mayor?
That you're going to be seeing over the next 3 hours.
Yeah.
I just want to say
that smile will be the number one.
Yeah. Right.
thank you. And I look behind us here. This is an amazing change from just, 5 or 6 years ago in terms of the level of 3 years he's pointing out. So the level of development, the type of development is clearly, transit-oriented development. It's going to provide opportunities for people to ride transit for both where they live and where they work. And so pleased to see that this is developing as it is. And I know your fingerprint and your staff's fingerprints are all over that. So I want to thank you.
Thank you. We have a really good staff. And just for the record, I took the bus to the light rail to here today, and I'm taking light rail downtown to a meeting and back. So I'm trying to be a good
points there.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's the only time we'll be taking rail, but that's...
Yeah.
All right.
What he probably they didn't tell you is that this meeting is at 9 o'clock in the morning, and that meeting that he has to go to is at 1:30. If he starts now, he might be able to get there on time.
With that, what I'm going to do is we're going to go to opening the...
That's as long as there's no max disruption. I don't know if you've been... I follow the service alerts on Twitter and the people that are talking over there, and there's just constant max disruptions these days. Constant. 3 or 4 or 5 a day, it looks like.
public forum.
Oh, so that wasn't the public forum, huh?
No, this is the...
We have, this is the time on...
The mayor took off, what, almost 10 minutes?
Yeah, that's right.
Before our regular business meeting, where we provide an opportunity to hear from the community on matters before the board of directors, either those items that are on the
Oh, before we start this, I'll mention we didn't get through the last board meeting. We got as far as when they started handing out the pork barrel contracts, and we didn't finish. It's just not enough time available to finish these. So the important parts of these board meetings are the general manager's report and the public comments anyway, unless they have an interesting speaker like Patrick Pricer or those people.
The agenda today, or I...
Yes? You say something?
Oh, yeah, I mean, the agenda...
Yeah. Right, the contracts, I mean, they're all pork barrel, and here they hand out money like it's fucking glasses of water.
I mean, you don't want to bet that they are not going to approve it.
Yeah, no.
Against it.
Right, they never vote no on a general manager request.
Items that are of concern about Trimet. If your issues are not within the jurisdiction of the board, Trimet staff is here to listen, and we'll be able to help get you steered to the right place to address your concerns.
Yeah, that right place is right out the door.
Yeah, right. These are painful to watch, too, because there's so many articulate, enlightened, intelligent speakers to the board, but none of it goes anywhere. None of it, we've talked about this, it's not covered in the media. There's no coverage whatsoever about any of it. There's only a handful of people that are...
I watched the news and checked the papers. Not one coverage of the upcoming 2 people who testified.
No.
Who I think are probably some of the best testimony in years.
Yeah.
And not only that, I put it out right now. I put a challenge to the governor to appoint the upcoming 2 people we will be hearing from to this board.
Yeah, well, that will never happen. Of course, that will never. These are all insiders on here. You know, this guy here is CHM2 Hill.
Right.
This guy's supposed to be a union guy. I don't know anything, and I don't know about her. I don't know. Opal likes her, so she must be okay. I mean, Opal's pretty reliable in terms of their advocacy. We'll find out as things go forward.
We're calling folks up in the order which they signed up. We have a sign-up sheet that's available 30 minutes before this time, and you will be taken in the order of the sign-up. We do have, I believe, 18 people signed up today, so that's a lot of people. So I'm going to have to ask you to be as brief as possible. We usually limit it between 2 and 3 minutes. I don't want...
Yeah, he's not, it's just disrespectful, just stay an extra hour, you know what I mean? It's just so disrespectful. But it's their job to make sure the public doesn't get any more than they need to give it.
I'm going to cut people off, so we'll use the 3-minute stand.
The requirement by law that they have public meetings and take public testimony.
Right, it's the requirement by law. They wouldn't do it if they didn't have to. This wouldn't even be broadcast if they didn't have to. The only reason it is broadcast is because me and a blogger buddy of mine used to broadcast these privately, and they got shamed into it by the Secretary of State. But Trimet operates in total secrecy, and nobody really gives a shit about it. Not really, in terms of public perception. People don't think about it, and that's how they can get away with all this, because nobody really thinks about it. It's just this tiny little group of people that really focus on seeing what's going on there.
Yeah, if we put this tiny little group, which includes you and me, we would not even fill one bus, let alone a 2-car train consist.
Right. Yeah, right. No, I know. There's the group. I know from my blog that, there's like 20, whatever I put on the blog will get like 20, at the minimum, 20 views, and at the maximum, like 100, unless it's really something,
And the only reason I think it might be less, and not by much, is that I would not put it past them that if employees of Trimet began to view your blog or these postings on any regular basis, any future promotion could be in jeopardy.
Yeah, no, they have me. I'm personally like pushed off into the very far reaches of the internet where I don't. I'm sure they're throttling my site and my what I'm having to say. I'm sure that's not really. It's not getting any focus. I'm sure I'm pushed off into the side. But I do know it's been consistent. There's about 40 people that follow the material along with me. So I know that personally, I know the 40 people that follow the material along with me. I know who they are. So those people I know are serious about following it. Of course, none of those people have any kind of political power, but they're geeks, transportation geeks, and they follow with me. They help me. And that's why I know that those statistics are probably pretty good. I mean, I don't know how. I don't know how you can look at my blog without clicking on an actual post, and it won't count. You have to click on the post to actually get registered on my counter thing. If you're just scrolling through the blog, you won't get registered on the individual post counter.
Would like you to adhere to that. There's a timer up there, though I should give you a little bit of warning, and I think it'll show red when your time has expired. And I do want to point out, if you have information, written materials that you want to provide us, or copies of your testimony, please get them to our board secretary over there, and those will become part of the public forum record and make it feel.
Oh, by the way, Neal, I just saw on the Twitter today that they had public hearing for HB 217. There were public hearings today about that. That's that tax grab, that $3 billion tax grab.
Yeah.
And they didn't broadcast any of that. It's nowhere to be found. So they didn't keep a record of it. So here we go. Here we go again. Another secret agency's been set up here in the.
This following comment, I'm not sure is true, but I thought they might be investigating, other than the red light to tell you that, and the buzzer, that they might be wiring the seat with some electrical power.
We'll make sure that all of us get copies of those. So with that, because there's quite a few folks ready to go, I'm going to call them up. Call you up here. Looks like we have 2 chairs, so I'm going to call you up 2 at a time and ask you to immediately start. So we have Jacob Puckett.
Yeah.
Yes. Great insight. As soon as I can figure out how to use these things.
Rachel Dawson.
This guy's good. He's got the facts. Look at how good they look, too. All suit and tie.
By the way,
good morning, members of the board.
The members of our union, when they testify, should look so good.
Yeah, maybe.
They could take some dress.
Again, my name is Jacob Puckett, and I want to highlight a couple aspects of transit ridership concerning the proposed Southwest Corridor Light Rail project that I find a bit concerning. In 2035, the proposed rail line is forecast to carry over 41,000 people per average weekday. But max ridership projections have consistently been overinflated.
Yep.
Figure 1 on the handout in front of you shows the projected ridership for each line in the year 2020 based on when the environmental impact statements for each line were written. It's nearly 2020, so we can measure those predictions, and as you can see, none of them are really that close. The orange line is the
No, I mean, that's a bombshell that should have been covered in the press. That's a bombshell.
Wait a minute. Let's see. If you use hand grenades and horseshoes as a criteria, it's close.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's bombshell information, and it was completely ignored by the media, of course.
Closest to where it's supposed to be, with 59% so far of expected 2020 ridership, and total ridership is 58% of 2020 expectations. Since the proposed light rail line is also currently covered by 9 bus lines, I calculated the ridership trends of those 9 bus lines since 2001, which is shown in Figure 2. And as you can see, total bus ridership starts to rise for a couple of years, but it's been trending steadily down since 2009 and is now 3.5% lower than it was previously in 2001.
Wow.
Additionally, the populations
that's
of the
an
community...
important statistic.
Yeah, I mean, he's proving that.
I mean, because what Trimet does is use this monthly and then yearly interchange of statistics to minimize.
Right. They don't want to show you the big picture. And we talked about that in the last episode, I believe,
Right.
or the episode before that, how Patrick Pricer was changing, from the month to the year to the quarterly. He kept moving around to make sure it sounded as good as possible. And that's a standard technique Trimet uses.
using the Southwest.
There's an old saying, if you're going to predict the future, predict often.
Yeah, right.
Corridor.
And in Trimet's case, you add, if you don't meet your projected prediction, no problem. Just lower the what you predicted. So when you hand out the press release, you can say we surpassed it.
Yeah, right.
And by the way, they did that initially with the Blue Line.
Did they really? Yeah.
Oh yes. The number of people writing initially projected never met projections, and they kept lowering them, and I think by the 4th projection that they handed out, they succeeded in surpassing it. So again, no failure has ever befell this company
Right.
due to...
Right.
Tin, Tigard, and Lake Oswego all grew during this time. So I calculated the number of transit riders as a percent of the population that would be using the available transit, which is shown in Figure 3 on the handout. Another way to calculate this would be from annual reports from the City of Portland Auditor, which you can see in Figure 4. So while the population increased, the amount of bus transit ridership along the Southwest Corridor didn't even hold steady proportionally. It declined. Taken together, I think that these data point away from the effectiveness of building another rail line. That not only are there reasons to question the projected ridership, but transit ridership trends in the Southwest Corridor also call into question one of the reasons for building it in the first place. Thank you again for the chance to testify.
All right. Well,
Okay.
it's all very succinct and it's all accurate.
Okay. There's a big difference between this gentleman and how he presents his statistics, because he gives the basis of how he arrives at those
Right.
statistics.
That's right. Yes.
You have never heard Trimet ever tell you how they came up with these numbers.
Exactly. No.
And this is so self-evident of a story that was true and played out many years ago in the paper, that Trimet proclaimed that 90% of their fare machines worked. All the time. 90% was the average.
Yeah.
Which was so far from the truth. As an operator, every day people would come up and say, I've tried for the last 5 stops and not one machine is working. So there was a gentleman from Intel who was a quality control manager concerned with how one gets to the percentages, analyzing, in his case, chip production, asked Trimet, can you please give me the methodology how you arrived at 90%? He was politely told, no, you can't have it.
Uh-huh.
he filed a Freedom of Information Act, got them to finally release how they arrived at 90%.
I think I remember this. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
And it turned out that to get to 90%, they used only 10 machines for the basis of their analysis. 10. And out of those 10, 6 of those were on platforms that had the lowest people boarding. And at the time, 2 of the 10 were on West, which had no ridership, and the machines were just installed. Trimet finally admitted publicly that maybe their analysis and methods were wrong, and they thanked the gentleman and covered their rear end, and that was the end of that.
Yeah, did it get any coverage in the media? Do you remember?
It got
a little coverage. I think I remember.
It got so little coverage.
Yeah.
That, but the point wasn't the lying about the percentage. It was how they were lying.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, we've seen.
And by the way, it continues to this day.
Of course it does. Of course, the players have changed, but the institutional setup has not. It's all the same. They keep changing the faces up here, but nothing ever changes.
And Opal and others have called for the makeup of this board and how this board is put together to be changed for years.
Yeah. Well, that's not going anywhere. You know, it's really not that much different from, well, we don't need to get into the whole Trump thing, but I think...
Okay, go ahead.
But I think Donald Trump is a good example of how government really works. You can really see it with him. This is what government does, and he'll be with the citizens, okay? You don't count. And although it's quite obvious with him, it's actually the same thing here, too. It's just a little bit more refined in how they do it.
Well, good morning, all. My name is Rachel Dawson. I'm a resident of Clackamas County, and I'm here to talk about a statistic known as the Fare Recovery Ratio, or FRR, that Trimet tracks,
she was from last time.
along with all other transit systems throughout the nation world.
Tiger Lady.
Now, during the 2017 fiscal year, the amount of operating expenses paid for by fare revenues was about 33% for Trimet, or 37% for fixed route. This means that the vast majority of operating expenses was paid for by subsidies and by the taxpayers rather than by individuals actually using the service. Now, operating costs for Trimet have been increasing, and I came in last month's board meeting and talked about decreasing ridership. So without a change in the cost of a fare, with increasing operating costs and decreasing ridership, this means that that ratio, the FRR, is decreasing. But this doesn't always have to be the case, and cities around the country and the world have shown that it's possible to have a much higher ratio. For example, in Amsterdam, the FRR is 88%. San Francisco's BART system is 75% in 2016. And Chicago Metro Transit is 53% this past year in 2018. Now, Chicago, in fact, has an annual performance goal of 50%, which they were able to surpass this past year with 53%. Now, I'm not aware if Trimet has a performance goal for the FRR ratio. However, I think that Trimet should establish an FRR performance goal similar to that of Chicago, 50-51%, to try to ensure that passengers who are using that system, the transit, are paying for half the operating costs.
The gentleman who was the board member replaced on the end, this is right up his alley. Here is someone who always used to say, can you give me some references from other cities? And here she is laying it right out.
Yep.
Tiger Lady knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, these people are very good. They've obviously mastered the subject material.
Reason as to why taxpayers should subsidize the rest of that ride. Now, there are a number of things that can be done to increase this FRR ratio. One could be increasing fares, which isn't always the most popular option, increasing ridership. Now, right now, a ride costs for TriMet $2.50. However, the cost for fixed ride operations per boarding is just under $3.50.
Okay, when you and
You
I
see
first
higher
started
costs of
out, remember in the morning when we got our pouches, there used to be a little pile in a box of like an accordion about the size of a matchbook that had all the kind of statistics that you could hand out to your riders.
Oh yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yes, and one of the things she's talking about is this statistic. And that in those days, I think it cost, I think if the fare was 55 cents, the boarding cost, actual cost was $1.82 or something like that. And eventually, and it talked about the number of buses and how many routes and the annual budget. Well, all that information has completely disappeared for easy access to the public.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so so at one time, all this information, what she's talking about is, and the other thing is, while you're listening to this woman's testimony, Miss Tiger Lady, and I say that with great respect, keep in mind the testimony from the TriMet person who was in the blonde woman from HOP, who was there to, quote, indoctrinate and inform the new members about the system.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really...
She talked in circles. This woman, in half her time, has gotten to the point.
Yep.
Across the country. In New York, it's $2.75, and in San Francisco, the average is $3.67, although they do it based upon the length and distance of your route, so that goes up to $15. In addition, you could also have a premium fare or a premium service, such as a new express bus. I know that ODOT is planning to put in a new congestion-priced roadways, so perhaps you can have express buses that utilize those faster speeds for an increased fare, $3 or $4. The increasing use of Uber and Lyft suggests that there is a high willingness of individuals in the region to pay for such a premium service. So I think that it would be beneficial to try to take advantage of that market in the area in order to increase the FRR. Another way to increase that ratio is by decreasing operating costs. For example, right now for light rail, full-time...
Yeah.
Yes, let's see.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of the managers, their offices, their support staffs, their company cars, their pensions. Note that Fred Hansen's retirement, the one before Mr. McFarland, who was the CEO, I think his monthly pension is $16,000 a month.
Yeah, it's actually 17, but yes. For life.
I didn't want him to stay at Motel 8.
Yeah, 17,000 a month for life.
Right, and I don't know what Neal's pension
is.
It's
13, somewhere like 13.7, I think, just under 14. Yeah, so he's not suffering either. I mean, these are agents of the oligarchs, so they always pay the agents of the oligarchs very well, and they get that pension because they funneled hundreds of millions and billions of dollars through to the capital projects insiders. That's why they're getting that money, is because they provided billions of dollars to the planners, the developers, the construction contractors. That's why they have those pensions. I hope people understand that, because their job is to keep that money flowing, not to provide decent transit service, but to keep that capital projects money flowing to the Portland insiders.
Employees per peak vehicle has been increasing. It's over 3. So cities have shown it's possible to have a sustainable public transportation system, and I think that TriMet can as well by making some of these changes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now get out of here. No discussion this time.
Let's move on then to Orlando Lopez.
I want you to note, not one of these people, even the new people on the board, were willing to take on the tiger lady and the gentleman before.
They learned.
Because if you recall, was it Stovall?
Yeah, he tried to.
He tried, and she diced him, and politely said every time she was attacked on her statistic, and she replied to him, "If you're looking for your head, it's in front of you on the floor." That Stovall tried to discredit her, and he failed miserably. And you could see that. I don't even think that did he give her a thank you?
No. Not that I remember. No.
Yeah, I mean, this is testimony that is using Trimet's own statistical numbers, and they're not one peep from one of them.
Yep. No, they keep their mouth shut. They learned from the last one.
With Opal and Darla Sturdy.
Oh, Darla.
We haven't seen for a while. Nice to see you.
Boy, she really loved her son, that Darla.
Yeah, I have to hand it to this woman, and Mr. Warner, I'm sure, is making sure he's overly courteous to her.
Yeah.
Even though what she says is pointed right at him.
Hi, I'm Darla Sturdy, and I'm actually with the Oregon and Southwest Washington Family for Safe Streets now. Not everybody knows who I am. I'll just do a quick brief. In 1980, when they first began the light rail line out in Gresham, they built it, and then we built around it. So they didn't look ahead for the safety part of it. Anyway, in 2003...
Yep. We'll start over again. Sorry.
In 2003...
he actually was probably hoping that she thought that was the end of her time.
Yeah, he kind of set that off because he was thinking, I got to get her out of here.
My son was killed on a crosswalk out in Gresham by the light rail. And then I started taking a look at the rail and what had been done there, and started seeing that there wasn't channelization, there wasn't much. So I also checked into what Trimet had done. In 1999, Trimet did a safety study throughout the entire light rail line, and it said where all the places were bad. Well, in 2007, I passed a law that made them go back to the line that was bad because Trimet never did anything. And they had to go back, take a look, and it ended up they had to change 80 crosswalks and 45 stations. So with that, in 2007, 2008, went in front of the board and asked them how my law was going, and they didn't know anything about it. So in 2009, went back down to Salem, and then that's when they told us how many we needed to change. The reason I'm here today is you are building a new line, and we need to look ahead.
Yeah, the board knew nothing about it.
Yeah, right. That's right. I remember that.
Do you really think that they read the supplemental materials handed to them by public testimony?
No, of course they don't. No.
Yeah,
we don't.
Yeah, it's a fraud. The whole process is a sham. We know that. It's a sham.
We don't need to just lay the line and then figure out the safety later. And with the track record with Trimet, is that's kind of how we're doing it. And I would hate to see the same things happening that are happening now. I hear all the time more people are getting hit by light rail. So I'm looking for an oversight committee that maybe Trimet is not the head of that maybe there's someone else that oversees.
Right. Independent auditing. That's what Trimet is severely lacking at all. There is no independent auditing of this company.
Right, and even this new advisory committee set up under House Bill 2017 is just an advisory.
Yeah, and we don't know, and I don't know anything. There's no public. They're not keeping any records here, so people like me and you can't look at this later. So we don't know what's going on there except what they're telling us. So that's intentional, obviously. They don't want us involved.
I mean, they will never accept an outside source unless they are paying the consultant.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They want their hooks in who's ever evaluating.
And by the way, I'm on the edge of my seat waiting for the two outside consultants that they have paid to arrive to assess the equality and hiring practices.
Sees you. And then I'm also looking to maybe help as far as if you where you lay in the line and looking at the crosswalks and that. I just want to make sure I put everything in here that I wanted to say. So I'm 15 years later, and it's been 15 years since my son died, and I continue to do this for everybody else because I don't want them to lose like I've lost. And as we listen more and more that people are getting hit, people are concerned about the inside of the rail, but what about the outside of the rail? And are we really paying attention to how many there are every month? So I'm just looking to make sure that we follow and make it safe for our citizens, that we just don't lay this line because we want to get them back and forth. We lay it because we want to make it safe.
Well, she's an idealist. She wants it done with people in mind, and we know that it's being done with money in mind. Money, that's the purpose. It's all about money.
I'm going to digress here and go into a personal story. A few years before I retired in Hillsborough, I killed a gentleman.
I remember. I have the dispatch call of that, by the way.
On that, and before that happened, before I had this particular incident, I must have called in 5 or 10 times, went to managers, filled out reports that there was these bushes just before the crosswalk and the junction box that blocked an operator's view going westbound, that you could not see anybody until they were upon the tracks almost. And no response.
Is that where that's where the accident happened? That's where your accident happened?
That's exactly where it happened. And after that, Mr. Tony Roberts, who was the safety guy, and on the management side, I told him, I said, am I surprised that this happened? No. By the way, he didn't die right away. He died, I think, 2 days later, which is a good plug to wear a bicycle helmet. But then again, that bush eventually got trimmed back, grew back, called it in again, almost hit 2 11-year-old girls who were completely covered by this bush. And to this day, I was in Hillsborough yesterday and went by just to see how things are going. And guess what?
It's overgrown.
It's overgrown.
Yep.
I know it's, quote, part of the bank's doing, but I guarantee you, if I was an attorney representing 2 future victims, I would go and say, Trimet and the bank, it's a problem.
Maybe, yep.
And I live with that to this day.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Neal.
And by the way, if you look online, there were a couple postings on Facebook. A very simple solution is they showed up in Canada, I think, and a couple other places around the world, painting crosswalks with the illusion of 3D.
Yes, I've seen that.
Phenomenal.
Why aren't they doing it?
I'm just saying the cost is paint.
Yeah. They're not doing it.
I mean, we're not talking about electronic arms, gates. This alone would save tons of lives.
Yeah, they're not doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else? What else needs to be?
I mean, the now person in charge is Mr. Harry Saporta, in charge of safety and security, who more problems on this system can be laid at his feet over his 20-year tenure at Trimet.
Yeah.
I must admit that Mr. Saporta has really improved over the years in one area, and that he gives the best PowerPoint presentations of any Trimet manager.